Good to see you. Go ahead and join with us as we start today off singing. Here we go. You make the darkness running at you, bring the broken back to life. Only you can, only you can. You get me free from every chain. You fill my heart with songs of praise. Only you can, only you can. Yeah. Jesus, you're the only reason that I'm even breathing. I am wide awake. My heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to call me. My soul sings for you and call me. My feet dance to rhythm, to rhythm. Every beat is calling, every beat is calling out your name. The glory of your throne to bring this runaway back home. Only you can, only you can. You give me love, give me life. You keep me dancing through the night. Only you can, only you can. My heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to call me. My soul sings, but you will call me. And my feet dance to rhythm, to rhythm. Every beat is calling, every beat is calling out your name. Yes, every beat is calling, every beat is calling out your name. All right, let's sing this together. Jesus, you're the only reason. Yes, Jesus, you're the only reason that I'm even breathing. I am wide awake. Oh, you move me. Your freedom is consuming. I feel it rushing through me. I'll never be the same. My heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to hold me. My soul sings, but you will call me. My feet dance to the rhythm, to the rhythm. Every beat is calling, every beat is calling out your name. Oh, yes, every beat is calling, every beat is calling out your name. Oh, sing it with us. Every beat is calling, every beat is calling out your name.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Mission. My name is Rachel, and I just want to say thank you for showing up today. We're so glad that you are here. Now, if you are new here today, we would love to meet you. And if you just head over to the hub after service today, there's some volunteers there that would just love to get to know you and give you a gift. Now, I do have a few quick announcements today. You guys, we are doing some really awesome things in July that you have an opportunity to jump in and help out with. The first one is House of Refuge. We are going to be serving breakfast to the kids at House of Refuge every Friday this July. We hope you can join us in that. We are also going to be going to DCS, that's Department of Child Safety, and we are going to just bless them by helping out, by sprucing up their offices. It's going to be a real blessing to them. That's July 21st. And the last thing that we're doing is a backpack drive. Now, we are partnering with a school in Mesa where 95% of the children at that school qualify for free or reduced lunch. You guys, these supplies that we are going to give to them are going to go a long way. So be sure to jump in and help out with that. This is something you can do by yourself. It's something you can do with your community group, with your family, with your friends. Get creative. So for more details on that, you guys feel free to pull out your phone right now and text Summer Serve to 80123. Summer Serve 80123. Now, we have an awesome service planned today. We're going to sing a few more songs together, and then Kenny Conley, our next gen pastor, is going to kick off the At the Movies summer series. But first, before we do that, do me a favor, turn to somebody around you, shake a hand, and tell them your favorite treat to bring to the movies.
Even in the fire, I'm alive in you.
who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. This love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. Who I am. It's who I am.
We do look to a good Father in heaven, a heavenly Father that has sacrificed for us and demonstrated his love on the cross through his Son, Jesus. And so as we continue to worship, we give back to our Heavenly Father. We give back to our provider as we give of our tithes and offerings. So at this time, you can go ahead and take a seat. I'm going to invite our volunteers forward. We're going to give of our gift of tithe and offering.
Hey everybody, how's it going today? It is good to see you guys. I'm glad that you're all here today. My name is Conley. I'm a the next generation pastor here at Mission. It's an honor to actually get to be here. I don't find myself on this stage that often. I'm usually on another stage in Next Generation, behind the scenes, investing in your kids or leading many volunteers who are loving and caring for your kids. And so it's an honor to be here. I'm thankful to Joel for letting me and trusting me to have an opportunity to be with you today. And today's a great day. We're kicking off a brand new series, At the Movies. This is our third year straight to do At the Movies. It's so much fun and we love it. Basically, this series is about leveraging blockbuster movies that we all know and love and unpacking spiritual truth and themes behind the movies. And oftentimes, this is the reason why some of these movies achieve blockbuster success, because they tap into an idea or a truth that resonates with the audience. And essentially, that's what we're going to talk about this month with this At the Movie series. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to kick this off for a handful of different reasons, actually. The number one reason is I love movies. I love movies. I would see a movie every day if that was a socially acceptable thing to do. I don't think that it is, so I don't do that. But for my birthday this year, Sarah, my wife, she bought me a movie pass. And if you don't know what that is, it's like a monthly membership. It's like $10 a month where I could essentially see a movie every day if that was a socially acceptable thing to do, but it's not, so I don't. But I could, and that's why I like it. And actually, maybe this is something that you guys can help me with because I love to see movies, but I never really have time for movies. When I do go see movies, they're usually in awkward times or afterthoughts. Usually for me, my movie-going experience consists of this. I come home like on a Tuesday from work and have dinner with the family, put the kids in bed. I come downstairs, it's like 8 o'clock at night, and I tell my wife, I think I'm gonna go see a movie tonight. Okay, that's normally what it looks like. And usually the first question she has for me is, who are you gonna go see a movie with? And usually the answer is like, it's 8 o'clock. Like, I just made this decision. I'm probably gonna see the movie by myself. And my wife thinks that that's weird and a little bit creepy. I don't know that I agree with her in that. I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing a movie by yourself. I do that all the time. But I've been trying to help out in that area, so I'm a little less weird and creepy. And I have a list of people that I text when I'm going to go see a movie. And I let them know, hey, in 30 minutes, I'll meet you at the Alamo. That's usually what it consists of. And sometimes I actually meet a friend and it's great. But more often than not, I'm the weird, creepy person in the back of the theater watching the movie by myself. And so then I had this idea, like today's my day. I'm on the stage and I kind of get to talk to all of you. And I thought that maybe out of, the hundreds of people that are here, that maybe there's somebody out here just like me, that you don't really have time for movies, you love movies, but if somebody invited you, say last minute on a Tuesday night, you might actually be willing to go. So if that's you, go ahead and pull out your phone and I want you to text "movie with Kenny." Okay, "movie with Kenny" to 80123. Now you're laughing, but this is a real thing, okay? Just all one word, "movie with Kenny" to 80123. I'm not sure that this is any less weird or creepy than me going by myself, but here's the deal. I like movies and I like to make new friends. So text that in and we'll go see a movie together. There's a lot of great movies coming out. So, okay, sorry, that was a little bit of a sidetrack, but an honest, real thing. I'm excited to be here. And a couple weeks ago, Joel asked me to kick off the series with the At the Movie series, and I was excited to do that. And he said, I do have a caveat though. We've already decided what movie you have to talk about. I said, okay. And he says, we want you to share about The Greatest Showman. And immediately, whoa, look at that. 10:30, just got excited. And I was immediately like, well, yes, I would love to share about The Greatest Showman. I love this movie. It has personal significance to me and my family, which I'll talk about later. But who wouldn't want to kick off a series about the movies without talking about The Greatest Showman? So I told him absolutely yes. And this movie was a theatrical enigma. It was. This movie came out at Christmas time of 2017, and this $84 million movie starring Hugh Jackman. And so for some of the guys that are here in the audience that didn't see this movie, and you're thinking, Hugh Jackman, that sounds familiar. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, okay? Wolverine. So guys, just imagine a happy, smiley Wolverine singing and dancing. That is The Greatest Showman, okay? That is the Greatest Showman. So if you haven't seen it, you're intrigued now, aren't you? You can watch this with your wife later. She'll love you for it, and you win bonus points. And so, well, this movie, okay, The Greatest Showman came out, $84 million, and it opened Christmas weekend in 2017, and it actually, right away, first strike against it. It opened at place number 4 in the box office and brought in about $14 million, which is bad news for a movie this big. It opened in 3,000 screens, so not very good. The second strike against it was that the critics didn't like it. Okay, they didn't like it. They gave it poor reviews. They got about a 57% on Rotten Tomatoes, and so that was strike number 2. And strike number 3 is that in the subsequent weeks after this, it didn't improve very much in its financial draw. And so most people were looking at this movie and they anticipated this is a failure. But something interesting happened. People loved this movie. And they kept going back to see it over and over and over again. And word got out about what a great feel-good movie this was. And literally 25 weeks later, this movie racked up $174 million domestically, more than $250 million in the foreign markets. This movie was a juggernaut. It ended up becoming, a bona fide success, blockbuster status. It just got there from a non-traditional path. And so what is it about this movie that we loved it so much, that people loved it so much? That's what people are asking. The critics didn't, but the people did. And so a columnist from the New York Times wrote an article asking that question to the readers. What did you love about this movie? And thousands of entries came in, and when you cull through all these answers, 3 main reasons kind of pop out at you, okay? The first reason is this: people loved it because of the soundtrack. Like the music was infectious. Like they loved it. Like it just stayed with you. Like days later, you're still humming the songs and singing the songs. And this is the type of movie that when you left the theater, you downloaded it before you even got home. Okay, people loved the music. The second reason was the movie's so fun. Like it's just this, it's a bliss from start to finish. You can't help watch this movie with a big stupid grin on your face the entire time. It is a fun movie. But last of all, and probably most importantly, it's a story. Like there's this amazing message in this movie that it's not easily missed. And it's an appropriate story, especially in the tense political and social time that we live in, that is this, people describe this as a celebration of humanity. A story of outcasts and misfits that find something that everyone truly wants, a place to belong. It was an amazing story. Here, read this what this critic said. The story touches the heart of the viewer in a profound way. The message of this movie powerfully connects with the personal dreams and desires. And the viewer feels something significant, not because of what the movie did, but because of something the movie triggers within all of us. This was actually said by me. I'm not really a film critic. But I love movies. Okay, forget that. But this is true, isn't it? Like, this is true. Like, we love this movie because it made us feel something that resonates inside us, in our deepest heart of hearts. Like, this is us, this is true. And we love the movie, and that's why it was so successful. One of the many reasons so successful. So for those of you who didn't see the movie, or maybe it's a long time since you saw it, let me catch you up on what this movie's about. The Greatest Showman is loosely based on the life story of P.T. Barnum. And P.T. Barnum was a nobody who wanted to be a somebody. Now, he had noble intentions. He fell in love with a girl who was far beyond his social status and class. And so he did everything he could and strived as hard as he could to create a life and a home and everything for her and their 2 daughters that they love so dearly. And he stumbled across this idea. He was an entrepreneur, and he ended up buying this museum of oddities, okay? And initially, it was a failure. Nobody wanted to come, and his daughter said, "Dad, people don't want to see what's dead. They want to see something alive." And so he makes a transition that leads to success, and he transitions this museum to a circus. Now, P.T. Barnum was attracted, and he was compelled, and he was interested in the misfits and the outcasts, the people that remained hidden from society, and he was drawn to them, and he put them in the spotlight so that all people could see them and marvel and celebrate. And he saw amazing success. However, he still considered himself on the outside. And he saw this circle of society's elite, and he wanted into that circle. And so he went after that, and that's where he began to lose his way. And even at one point, he shuns the people who helped him find success because he didn't believe that they belonged with them, the people he was trying to belong with. And shortly after that, everything collapsed. Everything fell apart. He lost his fortune, he lost his reputation, and he even lost his family. And in this dire moment, he finds himself in a bar. And that's the clip I want to show you right now.
Figured you'd end up here, feeling sorry for yourself.
Folks, if you've come to get paid, the money's gone, all of it. Nothing left to
Shut
give
up,
you.
Barnum. You just don't get it. Our own mothers were ashamed of us. Hid us our whole lives. Then you pull us out of the shadows. And now you're giving up on us too. Maybe you are a fraud. Maybe it was just about making a buck. But you gave us a real family.
And the circus, that was our home. We want our home back.
I saw the sun begin to dim and felt that winter wind blow cold. A man learns who was there for him when the glitter fades and the walls won't hold. 'Cause from that rubble, what remains can only be what's true. If all was lost, there's more I gained, 'cause it led me back to you.
This was a powerful moment in the movie because it was a point in time when Barnum had a realization, something he had missed all along. But interestingly, it was something that he had provided for all those who worked for him. And I would be willing to believe that this thing is something that may be the most powerful thing that a human being could experience. What is this thing? It's belonging. Belonging. You see, these misfits, they lived their entire lives in the shadow, and they wondered where they fit. And in Barnum's Circus, for the first time, he brought them together, and they had each other. They had a family, they had a home, they had a place to belong. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Imagine that you are one of Barnum's misfits, but before Barnum found you, what would it be like to feel like? What would the experience be like to be one of those people? And here's a premise that I have for you today. I don't think that you have to be a bearded woman or a hairy dog man to experience the feelings that they feel. You know, I think every single one of us at one point in our life or another, or maybe every single day, feel feelings like this, like inadequacy, loneliness, self-hatred, embarrassment, social anxiety. You see, these things aren't unique to freaks and misfits and outcasts. These are things that we feel powerfully, many of us every day. You know, prescriptions to antidepressants, anti-anxiety, antipsychotic medication has skyrocketed in the last decade alone. Many of that driven by helping to solve these issues. We live in the most connected time in all of history. There are dozens of ways that we can be friended and tagged and shared and poked and all the different things. Yet we've never felt more isolated and alone than we do right now. And it's exhausting consuming everyone's social timelines, what food they're eating, what vacations they're on, what their kids are doing, and the successes they see. And we feel this need to present our best curated life. And it's overwhelming and it's exhausting. How did we get here? How did we find ourselves in this place? And I think that for most of us, this path toward isolation and loneliness began in adolescence. When we were in middle school and junior high, right? When we woke up every morning, we asked ourselves these questions. Who am I going to sit with on the bus today? Who am I going to hang out with at lunch? Are my friends going to like what I'm wearing today? What if I say something dumb? Oh, dear God, what happens if I don't fit in? For so many of us, this idea of not fitting in has been something we've been struggling with since the very beginning of adolescence. And we've been chasing that ugly monster ever since. Brene Brown is a research professor from the University of Houston, and she recently wrote a book on this very topic, this pursuing this idea of fitting in. And she spent 15 years studying shame and vulnerability and courage and empathy. And in 2010, she gave a TED Talk, which ended up becoming one of the top 5 TED Talks ever viewed. It was a talk on vulnerability. It's seen by over 30 million people. You might have seen it, you might have heard of her. And she just wrote this new book called Braving the Wilderness. Now, it's an incredible book, but I have to caution you, she likes to use a lot of adult language in it, but that caution, read away. And she describes how we are neurobiologically hardwired for connection and belonging. We don't just want it, we need it. It's how we're hardwired, it's who we are. And she goes on to describe it like this. If I get to be me, I belong. If I have to be like you, I fit in. She describes this difference between fitting in and belonging, and there's fundamental differences there. And if I get to be like me, I belong. If I have to be like you, I fit in. She goes on to say it this way as well. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. You know, when she was doing this research, she talks about in a recent interview where she found herself in a group with middle school students, and she was talking about this idea of fitting and belonging, and they were giving so many succinct answers and definitions of what it looks like to fit in versus belonging. And in this classroom, one girl raises her hand and she says, you know, it's one thing not to belong here among our peers, but it's an entirely different thing to feel like you don't belong at home. She sat with that for a moment, and then she threw that back to the students. And she asked, how many of you feel like you don't belong in your own family? And immediately half the class put their head on their desk and they began to weep. How is it that we've gotten here? How is it that we feel this way? You know, when I was a teenager, I remember feeling this tension of fitting in versus belonging. When I was in 8th grade, I moved from Georgia to Virginia, and this was a time in my life I was excited about this move. I realized it was a time for me to reinvent myself. I wanted to fit in a way that I'd never fit in before. And so I had some changes that I was making to myself personally. I actually changed my name. I decided I'd no longer be known as Kenny, but instead, from this point forward, I'll be known as Ken. Well, whatever I did, it kind of worked, okay? I actually fit into the group that I wanted to fit into. That I hated it. I didn't like any of those people. Like, I had nothing in common with them. I didn't like talking with them. Like, I was miserable. It wasn't me. And so about 2 years later, I moved again. My parents moved us, and we moved from Virginia to a small town in North Carolina. And I decided this move is going to be different. This time I'm going to experiment in a different way. This time I'm just going to be me. And let's see what happens. It was terrible. It was terrible. I was completely and totally, categorically rejected by my peers. Now, I know you're probably listening. That sounds a little dramatic, Kenny. No, I'm being serious. For the next year, I sat at a table in the cafeteria by myself and ate lunch alone. I would walk into a classroom and sit down, and a group of peers sitting next to me would stand up and walk to the other side of the classroom and sit down. For about a year, I experienced what it felt like to be rejected and to be alone. And then one day, one of those peers, one of these guys from that group, he sat down with me at my table because he was intrigued with who I was and what I was about. And that guy became one of the best friends I've ever had. He was the best man at my wedding, and I was in his wedding. And it was in this year, this moment of vulnerability 25 years ago, that I see as a defining moment in my life, and it was quickly followed by a season of intense connection. And you know, Brene Brown, she hits the nail on the head. Belonging is what we desire, and that's why her words resonate with us so passionately. I believe it leads to the success of this movie, The Greatest Showman. This whole idea is about belonging. But this sensational idea in this topic, it's not new information. It's recycled truth. You see, 2,000 years ago, Jesus sat down with a group of people and he talked about these same specific feelings that we have as human beings. In Luke, the Gospel of Luke, there's this moment when Jesus finds himself in a very interesting situation. He gets invited by a Pharisee to a dinner party. Now, if you don't know who a Pharisee was, they were basically the self-righteous windbags of their day. Okay, they were the spiritual elite of their time who saw themselves as better than all the sinful masses. And Jesus finds himself at a dinner party filled with Pharisees. And Luke said that this dinner was very tense. Okay, Jesus was being closely watched. Jesus said multiple things and nobody responded. This was awkward. Imagine Thanksgiving dinner with your in-laws. Awkward. Okay, so let's go and see what Jesus said and did here in this passage. When he, Jesus, noticed how the guests picked their places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Okay, imagine for a second the awkward situation Jesus just created. Jesus just explained how to behave at a dinner party, which is the exact opposite of what everyone else had already been doing. And remember, Jesus' audience is Pharisees, and Jesus is watching them jockey for positions of power and honor. And you know who else does this really well? Children. Children do this really well. I'm constantly getting onto my children. In my house, you constantly hear me say, no, it's not your turn. Let her go first. You went first yesterday. It's her turn now. You don't sit there. That's not your seat. Let her have your seat. Like, this is a conversation we're constantly having in my house. Because all of us, like children, we want the best. We want to be first. We want the place of honor. We want the place of recognition. And Jesus was confronting our pride and our vanity and our selfishness. And here's the thing. These Pharisees believed that they deserved a seat at the table. They believed that they had earned a place of honor, and Jesus is confronting their pride. Now, I love Jesus' brutal honesty. He didn't care what people think, and he always called things as he saw it. And now that he was done shaming all the guests at the dinner party, he turned to set his sights on the host of the party and drop a couple truth bombs there. So let's see what he says next. Then Jesus said to his host, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or your sisters or your relatives or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Again, Jesus winning friends and influencing people everywhere he goes. He's basically telling the host, here's who you should have invited to this party. This is how you should have done it. And he's creating a scene here already. And Jesus is basically saying this, why did you invite the people that you invited? Oh, wait. I know why you invited them. Because you're thinking that they'll invite you back. What's your motivation? Is it selfish gain? Is it selfish ambition? Is it so that you'll be repaid? And Jesus throws out this idea, this radical idea of what if you invited people who rarely get a seat at the table? What if you invite people who could never repay you? Because if you did, God our Father in heaven will repay you generously for your generosity. Now, I wasn't there, but I'm sure that his suggestion was well received. Okay, but Jesus wasn't done yet. He had a few more things to say, so let's keep going. Gotta love Jesus here, right? When one of those at the table with him heard this, he said to Jesus, "Blessed is the one who will eat at the feast of the kingdom of God." Jesus replied, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, 'I have just bought a field, and I must go and see it. Please excuse me.' And another said, 'I have just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me.' Still another said, 'I just got married, so I can't come.' The servant came back and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry, and he ordered his servant, 'Go out quickly into the streets and the alleys of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame.' 'Sir,' the servant said, 'what you have ordered has been done, but there is still room.' Then the master told his servant, 'Go out into the roads and the country lanes and compel them to come, so that my house will be full.'" I love the imagery that's created in this verse. You know, the situation of this parable is not unique. Jesus told many parables and stories of parties and dinner parties and banquets where the less than expected people were invited. And more often than not, the misfits and the outcasts received the seat of honor. And I love the imagery here. I love the imagery of this table that's been prepared. And there's still room at this table. And the master's primary priority is that his table would be full. There's room at the table of our master's table. And I love the imagery of the invitation. I love that he invited all these guests, and he told a servant to compel them to come in, beg them to come in. There's an invitation. It's like Jesus is pulling the seat away and said, "I've prepared a place for you, and it is yours for the taking." Now, when I read this passage, and I read about this time of Jesus with the Pharisees at this dinner, lots of different ideas come to mind. And I want to share 3 big ideas that I get from this. The first one is this, that Jesus understands your need for belonging. He gets it. He created it. He did it on purpose. And here's the interesting thing, is so many of us are on this endless quest for belonging. But all along, for the last 2,000 years, Jesus is saying the same message. I prepared a table. I prepared a seat for you. You belong here. If we're looking for belonging, look no further, because Jesus says you belong at his table. And here's another idea. Some of us in the room actually have more in common with the Pharisees, the self-righteous windbags, I'm sorry. Some of us have more in common with them. Some of us actually feel comfortable in this place. We feel like we belong. We feel like we've paid our dues. We feel like we've made the right decisions. We feel like we've earned our place at the table. And I want to throw a cautionary warning to the insiders, because nobody earns their seat at the table. The only reason any of us have a seat at the table is because Jesus invited us to the table. When we look at others through the filter of who belongs and who doesn't, we've missed the point entirely. You see, more than once, Jesus explains that the misfits belong here. And I think that we're all going to be surprised one day when we get to heaven. And we're going to be surprised at who Jesus sits in the seat of honor, because I don't think it's going to be who we think it's going to be. Because Jesus had this habit of always turning the tables and surprising those of us who think we had it all together. And the last idea is this. The driving message from Jesus at this dinner party is a message of humility and vulnerability. And this is the ironic part about all of it, is that this quest of belonging, we've made it about us. But it was never supposed to be about me. And it was never supposed to be about you. Because belonging is actually found in humility and vulnerability. And the message that Jesus says is that when you invite the misfits and the outcasts to sit at your table, is when you actually find belonging. So what if our quest of belonging could end when we think to invite those to sit at our table? This is the real truth, isn't it? We're all outcasts and misfits. We're all misfits. This is the ironic part. We live in a world of more than 7 billion people, and our greatest struggle is loneliness and disconnectedness. Can you imagine how silly that sounds? Why is that? Because we're misfits. We can't find our fit. And I'm not talking about junior hires, and I'm not talking about circus folks. I'm talking about us in our everyday circles of community. We are misfits. I think about how much we dread gatherings with our own extended family, right? Holidays, where we sit and we listen to an endless barrage of questions about work and about relationships, about our parenting styles, and we dread it. Because even with our own flesh and blood, we're misfits. I think women struggle with this sometimes, of where sometimes they're maybe not girly enough for one crowd and not strong enough for another crowd, or they work outside the home and don't connect with this crowd, or they do work outside the home, they don't connect with the other crowd, and they feel like misfits. And I think men struggle with the same thing, because not every guy is into video games or sports or hunting or politics or the stock market. And even among a group of guys, it's easy to feel like a misfit or a couple. There's nothing more awkward than not having a child and being surrounded by people who are constantly talking about their children, especially if you have a story of infertility and miscarriage. You feel like a misfit. Or maybe you have seemingly average children, and you're surrounded by families who have superstar elite athlete kids and superstar academic kids, and you feel like a misfit. And maybe some of you are sitting in this auditorium, and you feel like the biggest misfit of all. You feel like if you knew my past, I certainly wouldn't belong here. You feel like a misfit. And think about the thousands of people who aren't here because they firmly believe that a church is a place that they could never belong. And maybe they feel that way because they've never been invited to the table. It's easy to find all the ways that we misfit because we're outcasts and misfits ourselves. Now, it's fun. You look around the room and you look around this campus and you see hundreds of volunteers wearing shirts that say, "You belong here." Now, we're not talking about this place. We're not talking about our facility or our campus or these services. We're talking about a community of misfits. This table that Jesus has set, and he's invited you to have a seat. And Jesus is pulling away a chair and say, "You belong here." Now, I told you I was really excited to speak with you today, and I didn't tell you the biggest reason why I'm excited. This message of belonging has personal significance for my family. It's actually a season that I'm walking through right now with my family. This is my son, Titus. He's 11 years old. He's a really cool kid. And about 3 months ago, it was right at spring break, we noticed that he had a couple spots on his face and on his back that we didn't know what it was. We thought that maybe it was some sun damage or something like that. And so we went to the dermatologist, and the dermatologist quickly diagnosed Titus with vitiligo. Now, most people, when I say that, they ask, well, what is vitiligo? Vitiligo is an autoimmune disorder where your immune system begins attacking skin pigments and leaves patches of unpigmented skin. Here's some pictures of some people that suffer from vitiligo. And when we got this diagnosis, it was a reckoning for our family. We knew that from this point forward, our son would begin to change. And as we knew him, would change and be different. But this diagnosis, we knew that it wouldn't change the way that we saw him. Titus would always be the handsome and beautiful boy that we knew him to be. But we did know that this diagnosis meant that the way everyone else sees him would change forever. And our biggest question is, how will he see himself? Will he see himself by the stares and the looks and the spots that grace his skin? This boy, his name is James. He's 12 years old. And on Instagram, he knows himself as the 12-year-old with gray hair. And he posted this picture of himself on Instagram a few weeks ago. And this is what he said. "Since developing vitiligo, life has been a little tough for me. And people haven't always been kind. But my amazing family and friends have kept me going, and I feel like I'm slowly learning to love myself and accept the way I look." this courage and bravery that I pray for my son as he's entering his developmental years. And he looks differently. Let me introduce you to my wife. This is Sarah. We've been married for 19 years, getting ready to celebrate 19 years. And about 6 weeks ago, she noticed similar spots on her arms and on her face. And this is interesting. Vitiligo only affects 1% of the population. And about 10 days ago, she too was diagnosed with vitiligo. And this was a reckoning for her as well. It was a messy day when she got her diagnosis because you think that you've grown past caring what other people think, and then when your skin betrays you and begins transforming in a way that you have no control over, it gets messy. Now, interestingly, last week, Sarah flew to Boston for the National World Vitiligo Conference. She'd actually signed up several weeks ago to go as on behalf of our son to learn. She didn't realize that she would be going on behalf of herself. And when she went to the conference, she called me multiple times and texted me multiple times. And this is what she said. She said, I found a community of strangers. I found a community of strangers who love me. I found a community that instantly became my family. And this is what she said. I wrote this down, so I have to quote it. And she said this, I didn't choose vitiligo, but if having vitiligo means being a part of a community of courageous, beautiful people, I'll forever be grateful for my dappled skin. Now, my mom actually flew with her. My mom and her have a great relationship, and she flew with her to support her. And at one point, my mom called me from the conference, and she says, Kenny, I'm overwhelmed by the love in this place, and by the love in these people. It feels like I'm at church. And I've never been to a church like this, but I feel like this is what church should feel like, overwhelming love. And last week on Monday, Sarah got home from the conference and we stayed up late talking. She was catching me up on all the stories, the things that she learned, and the people that she met. And then it was my turn, and I shared with her the much less exciting weekend at home, Dad and the kids. And I shared with her, I was actually writing the message that I'm sharing today last weekend, and I shared with her, I said, the passage I'm sharing is a passage of Jesus at the table and how he invited everyone to the table. She smiled, says, I have to show you something. She shared with me a journal entry that she made just a couple days before Titus was diagnosed with vitiligo. And this is what she wrote. When the storm of a vitiligo diagnosis blows down the house of our small-mindedness, from the rubble, we will build a table, long and wide, to make sure that all who feel alone have a seat to belong. They will know that they are wanted, that they are beautiful. Isn't that amazing? Friends, misfits, you are beautiful, and you are wanted. You don't have to be alone. It takes courage and bravery to step into vulnerability and be yourself. And experience the love from a family that will love you like you've never been loved. But I want you to see that Jesus has prepared a table, and there's a seat with your name on it. And he's standing beside it with his hand on the chair, and he says, you belong here.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. Learn to be ashamed of all the scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets hits my skin. Well, fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shame sink in. We are bursting through the barricades and reaching for the sun. Yeah, that's what we've become. Won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us. Pouring glory on. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. This is me. And I know that I deserve your love. There's nothing I know. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is proof, this is who I'm meant to be, this is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. Marching up, marching up. We see, I make no apologies. This is me. I'm gonna send the flood, gonna drown them out. This is me.
What if we created a community of radical inclusivity? What if we created a place where everyone felt like they belonged? What if we set a table and we invited the outcasts and the misfits, and they truly believe that they belong here? Wouldn't that be beautiful? That would be irresistible. It would be revolutionary. And actually, I think it would be exactly what Jesus always intended. We can do this. We should do this. And we're already beginning to do this for you and for me and for our next door neighbors and the next generation. And this is why I love being a part of a place like this. Let me pray with you. Father, we love you. We thank you that you have prepared a table for us, and there is a seat for us at the table. In our quest for belonging, let us search no more, because you have said that we belong here. And Lord, I pray that we would go out and this would be a message that we would bear to those in our community, that they would find belonging and connectedness with you and with us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Thank you. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next weekend.